Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning for our Retail Readiness for 2019 and Beyond webinar. We'll be getting started in just one moment, just waiting for any latecomers to come through. Okay, so let's get started. Again, welcome everyone to our webinar today. It's titled Retail Readiness for 2019 and Beyond. So today we've teamed up with award-winning digital agency eWave Commerce. So we hope you're able to get some key takeaways from today. But just to quickly share a little bit about myself, my name is Matt and I work for Neopost Shipping. We're a division of Neopost Group, a multinational organization that helps retailers and carriers put customers at the heart of their delivery experience. I'm based in Sydney as part of the TEMANDO team, and as most of you may know, we're a multi-carrier shipping software. There's a link just there on the slides to Neopost Shipping's website if you want to learn more about us. But I'll give our co-host Nick Hull from eWave Commerce the chance now to introduce himself. Thanks, Nick.
No worries, thanks, Matt. Hey guys, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Hull, and I work for a big global agency called eWave. We do a lot of work in the commerce space, a lot of work in the content space around customer experience, user experience, service design, and obviously a lot of work also in retail and commerce strategy. We work with platforms in the commerce space again, with ones like Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Adobe Magento, with the likes of brands including Ripco, Nike, Nestle, Canon, Coca-Cola, and Mars, to name a few.
Awesome, thank you so much, Nick. And with that, we'll kick off for today. And I'll just quickly introduce our topics for this morning. So firstly, I'll be sharing what it means to be retail ready for 2019. And a big part of this is sharing insight into a rising group of global consumers. And then we'll also be touching on consumer loyalty, and Nick will be sharing some of the science and research findings behind consumer loyalty, obviously, especially in the retail space. And as always, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat box or question box on your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them following the webinar. But just to quickly set the scene for this webinar, I'd like to take you back a couple of decades. So in the beginning of e-commerce, shoppers were limited by their devices. There was no seamless mobile shopping experience, so consumers would really be relying on their desktop devices to make purchases. Marketplaces were still very much in their infancy. eBay founded in 1999 and Amazon in 1994, and they just weren't operating on that enormous scale that they are today. Online shopping was very much in its infancy, and I'm not sure the world really expected it to be adopted as rapidly as it was. So let's fast forward to 2019, the 2019 customer experience, or CX for short. So according to Statista, between 2018 to 2022, e-commerce annual revenue is expected to see growth rates of 8.9% per annum. And in Australia Post's Inside Australian Shopping research paper, they've anticipated that by 2020, 1 in 10 purchases will be made online. So as you know, the e-commerce landscape has really undergone quite a drastic change. Retailers now have the opportunity to offer experiences that weren't even a possibility. So capabilities like personalization, innovative payment options like your Afterpays, and customer-centric delivery options like your 1 to 3 hour hyperlocal deliveries, and now experiences that are expected in 2019. And this really only scratches the surface of how retailers are leveraging technology to offer these experiences. But the fact is that today, 1 in 5 Australians are in fact Generation Z. Today in Australia, they make up over $1 billion in spending power every year. And with this spending set to see rapid growth as more of these young consumers enter the workforce. And something really important to remember, the youngest Gen Z consumers are still under 10 years old. To delve a little deeper into these trends, we're expecting to see in 2019, I'll be pulling some data from our newly released report, which is Great Expectations, Shipping, CX, and Gen Z. So we launched this report in August this year, and to get this data, we partnered with a research firm, Research Now, and we conducted quite an extensive survey of consumers and retailers across Australia, the US, the UK, and France. And just for those of you who don't know, we'll give a quick overview. Gen Z are consumers born between 1995 to 2012. They're mobile first, and they have some great expectations when it comes to CX, but I'll share more about that soon. So from this research, we found something quite astounding, and that was that 98% of Gen Z Australians will abandon their cart if their preferred shipping option isn't available. And this really means that retailers are leaving money on the table by not offering these delivery choices. And something important to note also, this is what we're seeing today. What exactly will we be seeing in the next couple of years? So here's what we found. These future trends for Gen Z expectations versus those of the average consumer can be seen just on this slide. And as you can see, the expectations were greater in every aspect of these future delivery and shipping experiences. So as you can see, the first one there, delivery date estimate at checkout. This is something that a growing number of retailers are offering today, and they're seeing competitive advantages by doing so. But the fact is that nearly 50% of all consumers expect to be able to see this in 2019. And as you can see, a contextual approach to shopping is also what Gen Z are looking for. But what exactly does this mean? This means that Gen Z want the ability to shop anywhere and anytime in 2019. Whether it be a seamless transaction through Facebook Messenger or a payment through a smartwatch, there's a movement towards contextual. And a contextual approach is facilitated by mobile. And as you can see here, Gen Z are really paving the pathway when you look at mobile transactions, with 34% of them stating that mobile is their primary purchase device. And that's compared to 23% of the average consumer.
Thanks, Matt. So what we can see from this research when we step back is that we're poised for the biggest change to the demographic makeup of the market in over 10 years. And until now, Gen Z really hasn't had enough disposable income for them to be interesting or even a priority for most marketers, but that's what's changing. By 2020, Gen Z is expected to have an e-commerce value of over $4 trillion globally, and they'll account for over 2.5 billion of the population and will make up 40% of the world's consumers. And if we look at Australia specifically, by 2025, Gen Z will grow in both size and purchasing power to become almost the largest spending generational profile in the country. And then in the preceding 5 to 10 years, they will become the largest and highest spending generational profile in Australia. So how do we respond to these changes and ready our businesses and our retail strategy to take advantage of this coming growth in Gen Z? First, we need to look at what we know so far about Gen Z and what we know about them in direct relation to retail and retail experience. So we know that they have the highest willingness to try new retail services and retail service formats than any other generational group that's come before them. So that's things like voice activated shopping or search through things like Siri, Google Home, Amazon Echo. They also have a high propensity to be or to sign up to auto replenishment models or subscription services that generations before them are much more reluctant to sign up to. We also know that they're more impulsive buyers, more so than any other generational group. So that has an impact on our pricing and promotional strategies and things like free gift with purchase and other kind of impulse buy strategies. And we also know that they value speed. They're willing to pay for express or same-day delivery, and Matt's going to talk more about this later. And they're also more likely to cancel an order when the online retail experience is ambiguous about delivery times. Matt shared before that they're 98% more likely to abandon a cart in that shopping experience. Well, this here is one of the reasons why they abandon any ambiguity in the timeliness of what they're going to receive, and they're much more likely to leave. But I think most importantly, we also have to understand that Gen Z is the first generation to truly be born into a fully digital world. Gen Z never had to consciously learn how to use many technologies, including smartphones. In a lot of ways, they were born with these devices and were using them before they could even speak. They view smartphones as an extension of themselves more than millennials and Gen Xers, And as Matt discussed earlier, the research shows that more of these consumers use mobile as their primary purchasing device than any other consumer group. So the importance of your online mobile experience becomes even more crucial as the significance and relative size of this consumer group grows. Your mobile experience needs to be intuitive, it needs to be easy, and needs to be fast. And if you're not already, your business needs to make sure that you take a mobile-first approach to everything that you do online.
And I guess just following on from you there, Nick, in the end, whether you're appealing to a Gen Z audience or the so-called average consumers, it's about being able to deliver experiences that are memorable. So being retail ready for 2019, it means being able to offer these customer-focused options to your audience. And from the research Great Expectations report, we identified quite a large gap between what is currently being offered by retailers versus the expectations of not only Gen Z, but average consumers as well. So as we can see from this graph, Gen Z overall expect more. As Nick touched on, this is the exact same generation who has been raised in a mobile-first world, who have craved instant gratification from countless social media platforms and have been exposed to on-demand experiences such as Netflix. And because of this behavior, it's no surprise to see that hyperlocal delivery, which is your 1 to 3 hour option, and same-day delivery are at the forefront of their expectations. But what was a surprise was the number of retailers who are currently delivering these speed-based fulfillment experiences. Take your weekend or after hours option, which is the final column on this graph. 48% of Gen Z consumers expect this to be available, while 25% of retailers are offering this. So although it is a gap, it is a big opportunity for 2019. And retail readiness for the new year, it means being able to close this gap and meet the needs of your Gen Z shoppers, but also your entire audience or your customer base. And even though Gen Z do have these high expectations of retailers and delivery options, they are willing to pay for them. And as we can see here, this is 2016 Gen Z trends versus 2017. And we can see that just over the span of 1 year, Gen Z have really demonstrated their appetite for fast and convenient shipping services. And that's like your hyperlocals, your same days, and your express. And interestingly, you'll notice that your standard and click and collect offerings are becoming services that aren't resonating as much with younger audiences, and they're less willing to pay for them. And why is this? So there's a couple of reasons why it could be. One of them is that they may not value it as much, just because these options don't promote the speed and convenience as much as the other options available. And they may expect retailers to be providing these options free of charge. So during 2019, it's important for retailers to consider their supply chain infrastructure so you can support these speed-based fulfillment options.
Thanks, Matt. Another thing we also have to acknowledge is that the experiences that we deliver to our customers don't happen in a silo. Their expectation of your brand is shaped and influenced based on all the exceptional experiences that they have in all the other areas of their lives. This includes world leaders in experience-based services like booking a car with Uber or even ordering a pizza with the Domino's app. They raise the bar for all digital experiences for everyone. Think about how much more painful the experience is of booking a taxi today after using Uber just one time. So if you lag behind, it only gets worse as the bar continues to get raised and their expectations continue to increase.
So having a 2019 friendly experience means considering the impact your experience offering has on your customers. So if you're offering your younger customers like your Gen Z a positive shipping experience, they'll be 71% more likely to purchase from you again when the time comes. And not only that, but 1 in 3 of them will leave a positive review. Shipping was traditionally classified as a back of house operation, but it's really no longer the case. We're not only seeing the reputation of retailers impacted by shipping, but also their ability to be referred or recommended by shoppers. And as Nick is just about to share, there's a lot more that comes into play when we're talking about the role of loyalty with consumers?
Thanks, Matt. So traditionally, loyalty programs are touted as the best approach to drive repeat purchases out of your existing customer base. I think we've all heard the stat as marketers that it's 4 times cheaper to sell an additional product to an existing customer than it is to acquire a new customer. We hear about strategies to make our customers love our brands or to be loyal to our brand, and that people are more willing to have relationships with our brands rather. However, over the past decade, loyalty programs have risen in popularity, and loyalty strategies form a key component of every brand strategy. Most often, these include things like point schemes, rewards, or status programs. But have we ever stopped to actually study and understand the real impact that loyalty programs have? Well, an extensive study has been conducted by an Australian research institution analysing Australia's most popular loyalty programs, including juggernaut programs such as Flybuys. What they were analysing was the real impact these programs had on consumers' purchasing behaviour. They wanted to understand if these programs caused an increase in repeat purchase behaviour and a so-called excess loyalty from even existing loyal customers. They tested to see how these programs affected 4 main areas. First one was switching between brands. Second, repeat purchase rates. Third was increasing the frequency. And the fourth was a propensity to be exclusively loyal to a single brand or product. The findings discovered that despite what feels like conventional wisdom, changing the fundamental repeat purchase patterns of customers is actually very, very difficult. These programs had little to no impact in their efforts to drive further loyalty or repeat purchases from existing customers. This is not to say that loyalty does not exist within a customer base, but rather that these programs had no real impact on this loyalty. It found that despite best efforts by marketers, most people don't want to have a relationship with most brands or to demonstrate their loyalty as customers, and are very, very rarely 100% loyal to a single brand. Through the simple act of calling it loyalty, I think between marketers, it kind of implies that some customers buy from you as a demonstration of this loyalty, when in fact the cold hard truth is that customers are polygamists. They cheat on us constantly and without remorse, even when they have incentives, points, and loyalty strategies to try and encourage them to stay loyal. This is why 72% of Coke drinkers still buy Pepsi, and why most people have 2 to 3 types of shampoo in their shower. Even some of the most hardcore loyalty programs only move the needle by a few percent, which is far from claims that it's easier to sell more to an existing customer with a loyalty program than it is to, say, acquire a net new customer. So if loyalty programs don't have much of an influence on customer loyalty, what actually does? In a strange twist, the research found that the single biggest predictor of a brand's loyalty within a given industry had more to do with their market share than any loyalty program or strategy. Those brands with the highest market share always have the highest average repeat purchase rates within a customer group. The brands with the second highest market share had the second highest repeat purchase rates within that same group, and so on and so forth. This was despite any loyalty programs or strategies employed differently between these brands within any industry selected, which tells us that we need to invest our energy and resources into delivering great experiences, in better meeting the needs of our customers to compete more fiercely within our industry. And with that, more repeat purchases will naturally follow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nick. I think there's definitely a lot of preconceptions about loyalty. And it sounds like the point that you touched on of people being loyal to a category or an experience rather than the actual product itself is very interesting in itself. But we've still got some time, so we've had a few questions come through. Nick, if you don't mind, this one is directed to you. So what experiences should I be investing in during 2019? Is voice something that I should be focusing on now?
Voice is an interesting one because there's 2 aspects to potentially the uptake of how voice could work. The first thing is the infrastructure around voice is in its infancy. So largely voice activated experiences or voice related experiences will heavily correlate with the number of Google Homes or Apple Homes that are in people's households, and how used do people get to using voice as a way to facilitate a transaction, facilitate a command and an action and things like that. I think, for example, when Siri first came out, even though it had all these kind of cool features, it was actually very rarely used, whereas now over time, people are getting more used to it. And the other thing to note that we shared earlier was the new generations are way more, or have a much higher propensity to use those type of formats. And ironically, the older generations, really old generations, are set to have a high propensity to use something like a voice format. Whilst it feels foreign to a lot of the people in the middle, or more foreign, I should say, who are used to a user interface, whether that's on desktop or mobile, for older people, voice feels more familiar and is easier to use than those traditional UX formats that they've kind of, to some degree, always struggled to find as intuitive as everyone else. But certainly it's something to think about using where relevant, and making sure that it still delivers value to the customer in some way. It's not kind of just a gimmick that's used, but it's important. We're expecting to see grow over time.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Nick. And another question, which I guess is directed to me, you talk about customer-centric delivery options. Which of these is the most popular, or should I be offering first? So I guess it really just depends on your audience. At the end of the day, it's about choice. So for example, an overnight delivery window might not be valued as much by a worker based in the city who's rarely home, but they might be passing a retailer on their way home, so they'll use a click and collect option. It's just by offering choice, you're really set to appeal to more consumers in the cart. I hope that answered that question. And Nick, the final question that's come through, I'll give this one to you. What retailers are leading by example in the customer experience space?
I'd say if I had to pick one of our customers, Accent Group, who owns like the Athlete's Foot, Hype DC, Platypus Shoes, Timberlands, Vans, a large portfolio of shoe brands, and has, I think, combined over 400 stores throughout the country, is taking a really interesting and forward-looking approach to digital. And they, set targets for themselves where they want, say, 40% of their retail volume to becoming purely online. And I think they've been at the forefront of enabling certain retail strategies and technologies that have made massive differences and had a huge impact on the success of their online, I guess, channels. This would be things like, they opened up their entire store network of stock to be saleable online overnight. That doubled their sales online. They also take a mobile first approach to everything, an actual mobile first approach. I think probably in the last 5 years, every conference you go to, everyone's talking about mobile. It sounds like everyone's beating a dead horse, but the reality is its importance keeps changing year on year, or keeps increasing, year on year. And I think there is a bit of a lag in terms of how people actually value it. Still, I think we all know it's important, but oftentimes our clients still default to talking about desktop, looking at desktop, as opposed to truly trying to go to the mobile and be mobile first, and understand the context of what is a mobile experience. Could they be in store? Could they be traveling? Could they be at home? And does that make a difference in what we want to show them, or the features and functions that are important to them? The fact that they want to find a store more regularly on a phone, and things like that. And then using that to shape the mobile experience, as opposed to, a lot of people kind of just take desktop and just try to fit everything into mobile without considering contextually what that means. So yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd pick the guys at Accent.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I guess mobile is expanding in, I guess, it's a hot topic still, because the capabilities for mobile are still expanding, and they continue to doing so as well. But that brings us to the end, guys. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, for carving out some time on a Wednesday. If you'd like to get in touch with either of us, ask any further questions, both of our email addresses are just on the screen there, so you can reach us directly. And we'll also be sending out a copy of this webinar to every registrant. So please feel free to share that within your internal teams as well. So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.